Okay, in 9-1, we're talking about area and perimeter of different shapes. And the first shape we're going to talk about are parallelograms. The most common parallelogram you know about is the rectangle, and you know it's just base times height.
Just being attached. Your dad's waiting for you in front of the building.
Sorry. If you take and you cut off part of this rectangle, take a right triangle and move it over this way, you're not changing the area at all. You just took this shape and you moved it over here. We still have base times height, should still work, which is why for a parallelogram, it is still going to be your base times your height. Oh, whoops, sorry, height. And it's really important that you remember that the base and the height are always perpendicular to each other. So for parallelograms, shapes that look like this, for rectangles, for squares, this formula is always going to be base times height. The first type of question I'm going to ask you could be a really basic question, like let's say here's a rectangle. I tell you this side is 10 and this side is 20 and the height is 8. Oops, sorry. This side is 8. You're going to remember that the base and the height are always perpendicular to each other, so this 10 really has nothing to do with our area. It's just going to be 8 times 20, and it's going to be 160, and that's your area. Just like I drew the height inside, sometimes they're going to take this same picture, and we want to say that this part is 10. Sometimes they'll draw it out like this, and they'll say that this is 8. Again, this is still your height and this is still your base. This has nothing to do with it. So if I told you that this was 2, it still has nothing to do with your base. This is your base and this is your height. This is exterior. It's not part of the parallelogram. This height, and even though it's outside, it could be drawn inside, and that's why it's our height. So some questions I'm going to ask you. There's 3 types. The first one is just to find the area like we were doing previously. This one is a little bit more challenging because it's missing a dimension. It's missing the height. You know, these are perpendicular lines. So this has got to be your height, and we don't know what it is. In order to find the height, you're going to look at this right triangle, and you're going to be using Pythagorean theorem to figure out what the height is. So we're using a squared plus b squared equals c squared. We know that one side is 30. And we know that the hypotenuse has to be 34 because these are going to be congruent sides. So you do your math. 30 squared is 900. 34 squared is, I think, 1,156. You subtract 900 from both sides. You get a squared equals 256. Your last step is to square root. And you get that a equals 16. So now we just figured out that the height is 16. Now that we know the height, we also know that the base is 11. So this is an important number, and this is an important number because they are perpendicular to each other. This 30 has nothing to do with our area, and this 34 has nothing to do with our area. This 30 is external, it's exterior, it's not part of the parallelogram. So you're going to plug those 2 numbers into our formula, 16 times 11, and your area is 176 square millimeters. So that's one type of question I can ask you, to just find the area. Another type of question I'm going to give you is I'm going to tell you what the area is, and you're going to work backwards to try to find the missing dimension. So in this case, I want you to find the base, and I'm telling you it's a parallelogram. So since I tell you it's a parallelogram, you're going to use the fact that we know it's area equals base times height, and you're going to plug in what you know. So area is 28 square yards. We don't know what the base is, and our height is 56 yards. So if we want to get the base by itself, the opposite of multiplying by 56 is dividing by 56. So you divide both sides by 56 yards, and you get that the base is a half of a yard. And sometimes people see decimals or fractions and they freak out because they think that's the wrong answer. To check your work, go ahead and plug it back in. We know that the area is 28. We said that we think that the base is 1/2, and we know that the height is 56. Is half of 56 28? Yes, it is. So we got this question correct. So again, the 2 questions we've done so far: find the area. Given the area, find a dimension. The third type of question I can ask you is to find the perimeter of a shape. And the perimeter is just when you add up all the sides. And it tells you it's a rectangle, so that means these two sides are perpendicular. Well, all the sides are perpendicular. And then if this is 21, this one's also going to be 21. But we don't know what the other sides are. So the first thing we have to do is work backwards and find the, let's call it the height. And we know that it's a rectangle, so the formula is area equals base times height. We're going to plug in your known, so this time the area is 79.8 x squared minus 42. That's totally okay that we have an x in here. It just means we're going to have an expression as an answer, not a complete like numbered answer. Base we said was 21, and we have no idea what the height is. And sometimes this looks really confusing to people because we have an x squared and we have an h. But remember, our purpose is to find the height. So this is what we're solving for. The opposite of multiplying by 21 is dividing by 21. So you divide every single thing by 21, and you get that the height equals 3.8x squared minus 2. And again, you cannot solve for x. I didn't give you enough information. So we just found the height of this rectangle. So if we put it into our picture, it looks like that. Both sides are 3.8x squared minus 2. Both sides. And we want to find the perimeter. So again, if we had to walk around this rectangle, this would be 3.8x squared minus 2. This would be 21. This would be the same thing, and this would be 21. So what we're going to have to do is combine like terms. So 3.8x squared plus 3.8x squared is 7.6x squared. That negative 2 plus a negative 2 is negative 4. 21 plus 21 is 42. And again, we can simplify even more. This negative 4 plus 42 turns out to be 38. And so this is your perimeter, and that is what they were asking us for. We went back, we read our question one more time, we're done. So the three types of questions I'm going to ask you: find the area, given the area, find a dimension, find the perimeter.